to my Scrappin space. I'm Joni Martin. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator located in Southwest Wisconsin. And I'm here to share with you a card I made with Storybook Moments. This is a suite of products that I am featuring this month in my card classes. It's it's what we might call a mega suite. It has 2 stamp sets, 2 dies, 2 paper packs. Today I'm focusing on the paper packs and the little dies, and I'll explain those in just a minute. But the 2 paper packs, there's a bunch of, let's call them spring scenes, and then there are a number of plaids, and the 2 papers play really well together. This is how I put them together for this card. I'm just going to move my suite board here out of the way. So here's our card. Let's shut that off. There we go. Okay, so this is our card. And I used a print paper from one of the paper packs and a plaid from the other. And then it is filled with die cuts. These little pieces that are already colored for you and already cut out. You can tell on my suite board here. Now you certainly can stamp many of these images and color them. Those of you who know me, that's not going to happen. Coloring is just not a skill set I have. But here's another die cut. There's all kinds of them, and they are just so cute. And so for this one, we're doing kind of a spring theme card. So you certainly could make it a thank you card, a happy spring card. I'm in need of birthday cards. And I have a lot of people in my life who are amazing at growing things. I didn't get that growing gene, but I love sending cards to people who did. So let me show you what I put together for this card. The card base itself is basic beige. Now, all the measurements, the directions, the supplies I used, you're going to find on Scrappin with Joni. So we're going to take this standard card base, and we're going to fold it in half, just like that. And then I'm going to grab a bone folder because I can get a better fold that way. And those of you who follow me know I have days that are good hand days and days that are not. This is not one of our better hand days, folks. So let's see how this goes. So my card base is folded, and we're just going to set it aside. This is the card front I'm using. Isn't that pretty? I mean, there's so many other things you could do with it. And I think my mom would have loved this paper. This speaks everything to her. So I wanted, though, something to kind of mat these little squares I'm going to talk about in a minute. So I took a coordinating piece of paper, and I cut it just slightly than the squares I'm using. These squares are from Perennial Postage. There's a variety of sizes, but these were the size that worked for me. And as you can see, the strip is just wide enough that you can see it on both sides, but it doesn't take away from this because I didn't want to lose any more of this print than I had to. I am putting this a 1/2 inch from the bottom. Now there's lots of ways you can do that. You can use your grid paper. You can use this wonderful glass mat. I'm just reaching for a little strip of scrap paper I have, and I'll show you how sometimes I do it. Of course, it's at the bottom of the card bin, so it's going to take a second. There we go. So this is just a scrap I had laying on my table, and I cut it to a 1/2 inch because I wanted this from a 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch from the bottom. Now, the other thing is this paper is 6 by 6. So I cut it the width I needed, which is 1 5/8. I didn't bother trimming it close. I'll show you why. For me, it's a little easier if I have what I call handles, a little extra paper. So I could, with grid paper, line it up and make sure I have it. That would be an easy way to do it. This is another easy way to do it. Just take this scrap and line it up at the bottom. Then I'm going to use for my adhesive for this a tape runner. And the reason I'm using a tape runner rather than a multi-purpose glue, which I do love, is because we're going to run this through the embossing folder. And when you're running something through the embossing folder on the cut and emboss machine, that puts a lot of pressure on the paper. And if I have too much glue, it's going to squirt out onto my card or onto my embossing folder. And that's not a good thing. So then I just set this down. And I have it equally from the bottom. Now, I'm going to trim the sides. I'm going to use this as my guide. And you certainly could cut it the width of the paper you're using for your card front. But really, that little scrap you're probably not going to do anything with anyway. And if you don't get it exactly straight when you've cut it the width of your card front, you have a little bit of that card front print showing, which is not a look I like. So before I emboss it, I'm going to add it to my card mat, and we're using Misty Moonlight for our card mat, and I know that's the right blue because Stampin' Up! Kindly coordinates everything for me. And on the back of this paper pack, it tells me that Misty Moonlight is a color that coordinates. Again, I'm using this because we're going to be embossing, and we don't want to put a lot of pressure with the multi-purpose glue. If I hit too close to the edge, it's just going to squirt out. And that's not a good look. So here's our card. As I said, I'm going to emboss it. And you could use any overall embossing folder, but I'm going to use Dashing Designs. This is a great overall folder. When I get an embossing folder, I put the name on it, so I remember to tell you what it is. And I put the sandwich, meaning which plates am I going to use. So I'm going to use plates 1 and 4. Let's get this stuff out of the way and grab the cut and emboss machine. We'll put the card away over here. There we go. And we always use plate 1. And then we're going to put this in the embossing folder. And when I do that, I'm going to use this little line here that Stampin' Up! Kindly includes, so I can kind of line it up straight. Though it's such an overall design, if it wasn't straight, you wouldn't notice. I'm going to make sure the Stampin' Up! Logo's on top, and this fold is going first. Plate 1 is down. Plate 4 in this system is the gray plate, and that's going on top. And when you line things up in your cut and emboss machine, there's always a plate on top. What that does is it protects your machine and it protects whatever you're using, whether it's a die cut or an embossing folder. And see how smoothly that goes through? That's how it should work for you. If it's really fighting you, then stop and make sure you have the right sandwich. Stop and make sure they're straight. Okay. There we go. There we go. And what this embossing does is it doesn't take away anything from your print, and we don't want to do that because we have that. But it just adds another layer of interest really easily. Okay. Now I have 3 little squares, but I'm going to, before I line my pieces up, I'm going to attach it to my card base because these are going to be popped up, and sometimes it's a little harder to add something when there's a lot more on the top, you know, like you're pushing down too much. Okay, so this is a great use for multi-purpose glue because, as you can see, lots of crevices. Sometimes that favorite Seal Plus of mine, our tape runner, will glide right over the top. So I'm being pretty generous, but notice I'm being generous in the center of the card, because if I get too close to the edge again, I'm going to put a lot of pressure on this, and I don't want that glue moving out to the outside of where it's going to land on my card front. But here's what else I'm going to do. I have this upside down, folks. Let's put it the correct way. There we go. That was a quick fix. The good news is I saw it before we glued it down permanently, but I would have had a fix for that too. There's been too many mistakes I've made in card making not know how to fix something. Now, sometimes with these heavily textured folders, it doesn't feel like you're getting it tight. So I just grab a bone folder and give it a little pressure this way. Okay, print is going the right way, centered on our card. We are good. Now, I have 3 of these, as I said, perennial postage that I cut out. I love these. And then these are the die cuts I'm using, all garden themed. As I look for the last one that's hiding over here. There we go. Like, seriously, how cute are those? So I'm going to attach them with dimensionals. And dimensionals are just little pieces of foam. They come off the sheet sticky. You don't need a lot. I probably will put 2 on each one just because. And then I'm going to peel the backs off. This is a trick my friend Jennifer, who's a demonstrator, taught me. And she said you always want to contain them because they go everywhere. And she's right. I used to kind of just toss them to the side or towards the wastebasket. I don't have a great aim. And then they would stick to my clothes or my shoes and wander all over. So by containing them, there, it's just less mess. There we go. These are all so cute. And then these, just like that. We're going to take off the backs of all of them. There we go. My dad was a great gardener also. Look at that. Both my parents could grow anything. I don't know. Again, I did not inherit that. But he would start seeds early in those little things. So then we're going to line this up so that it is somewhat centered. And when you're doing an odd number of things, always start in the middle and work your way out. Because if I started here and then did this, thinking, oh, that looks pretty good. Look how much more room I have over here. That's not a good look. So I mean, you know, I wouldn't spend a lot of time measuring, but I would just start with, looks pretty centered. And again, I'm adhering to something that's really heavily embossed. So this is when multi-purpose glue is your friend. But again, not too close to the outside. That's going to go right there. Now I'm going to center this one between here and here, and this one between here and here. Not that matters which order you put them in. And the great thing about this card is because there's no sentiment on the front, you could get this far, have it in your stash, and then when you need a certain kind of card, it's ready for you. Speedy recovery. Thank you. Thinking of you, or as I'm doing, birthday cards. That's going to go right there. Now, before we're finished with the front, I felt like it needed one more, like an embellishment, but I didn't want anything too shiny. So, because I think you could send this card, it's really gender neutral. You could send it to anyone. So I grabbed adhesive back texture dots. Have you seen these? I love these. They work for so many things. They really do have texture to them. They already had adhesive on the back, and they have two sizes. I'm using the larger of the two, but either one would work. So we're going to attach, oh, here we go, 3 of them. I like to put embellishments on a card in odd numbers, and I do it in a roughly triangular shape. I started my paper crafting journey as a scrapbooker, and the triangular shape is something that came from that. When you're putting images on a paper, like on a 12 by 12 layout, you kind of want your eye to go from that kind of triangular way. So that's where you put important pieces. There we go. And really, triangular shape, we don't care what kind of triangle, folks. It just means one is by itself and 2 are farther apart. And our card front is done. So for the inside, I grabbed this stamp set. Have you seen this? Simply Said. Like, really, if you only had one stamp set, who only has one stamp set? But if you only had one stamp set, this might be it for sentiments. Birthday wishes, just a note, hello, thanks, happy birthday, miss you, thank you, thinking of you, yay, and let's celebrate. That covers a lot of areas, doesn't it? I chose happy birthday, and I chose to stamp it in Misty Moonlight. Now, I could put this right here, just like this, and be done. But seriously, that looks a little sad, doesn't it? So let's do a couple things. First, I have a scrap of this really pretty Misty Moonlight check that we used on the front, and I'm going to add that to the top of the card. I'm going to do just a touch of adhesive along the card, not along the strip, because my strip is longer than the length of my card. And by having that length, again, depending on the kind of day I'm having with my hands, I have some handles I can use to hold it down. So that's going to go there, and I'm going to line it up right at the top. Now that's just me. I have people in class who like to leave a little bit at the top. There's other people who like to put it at the bottom. It's your card. A lot of people put them to the side. You get to decide. While we're gluing, this is another die cut that I wanted to use on the card. But I would have had to use bigger squares, and it didn't feel in proportion to me. I wanted to use the smaller squares. But I love this little blue watering can. So let's use that on the inside. We want to glue it flat. We don't want to pop up something that's on the inside. As you can see, I don't need a lot of glue. And I'm just going to kind of stick it in the corner. And I'm putting it like it's almost watering something. Okay, while we're gluing, those of you who regularly watch know exactly what I'm going to say next. We're not sending this great card in a naked envelope. So we're going to fold back the flap. And I have a piece that's 2 1/4 by 6. But again, my paper is bigger than the flap. So we're putting the glue on the flap. And that's going to go right here. Just like that. There we go. So let's do a little trimming. We are almost done with this card. It is certainly in the easy peasy range of cards. Okay. We will trim up this. Just going to grab my little bowl here. Well, so much for that. I didn't even catch it. I have really been trying, not that you would know it by looking at my space, to keep a little cleaner space. Yeah. It's just, I think my scrapping space has a mind of its own, and it feels more comfortable when it can see all the supplies out on the table. I have stuff everywhere here. But I cleared off enough of this table so I could share this card with you. There we go. And that is done. So we're going to attach this on the inside. You don't need a lot of this. I use Seal Plus rather than Seal. Either will work for you. It's really what you like. I just like the Seal Plus. And then this is going to go in here. And look, all of a sudden, everything comes together. It all coordinates, but it doesn't look so blah. Like that the inside was just an afterthought. Now, I know some of you write beautiful notes and cards. I sign my cards. That's all I do. But if you're a note writer, my mom was a note writer, you still have all of this to write a note on. So there's our card. That's a card you'd be proud to send anybody. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it more than you know. If you liked what you saw, please share it with your crafty friends. Until next time, take care and keep crafting. It's good for you.